Well, if there's one thing that the show proves is that it proves that not all TV reboots have to be mediocre. Adaptation of The Exorcist. This is season 1, episode 1, chapter 1, and Let My Cry Come Unto Thee. And I was definitely looking forward to this premiere, mainly because of the fact that it is The Exorcist, and that alone made me interested. But of course, I was a bit worried because, again, we are getting so many of these unnecessary adaptations of both, classic TV shows being revamped, and also, classic movies getting turned into TV shows. And I think that, shows like Rush Hour and Lethal Weapon, they just haven't really utilized them very well. This show, however, from the previews, was like it was actually going to be pretty good. However, as it went on, I was kind of worried about it. But I have to say that this premiere actually really impressed me. I was very happy with the way this premiere turned out overall. Was this everything I think the show could be? No, but for a first episode, and especially for a pre-existing movie, I think they did a really good job with making this stand out on its own, because even though the show is called The Exorcist, this show in general is really not at all like that movie. It just happens to have things that resemble that movie, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's just get in this first episode, talk about everything that happened. A lot of this first episode is developing the characters, but you know what? That's what a great pilot should do. It should develop the characters, it should get us into their background, and they did a really good job with that. So let's first talk about Thomas Ortega, our main character here. Basically, he is this priest who is, he's in church. He's kind of having problems reciting this reading and everything, and we can right away see these kind of struggling about, which I thought was a very interesting character trait that we saw. And he's also struggling a little bit with the celibacy aspect of his vows. One of the biggest parts of being a priest is that you don't have sex. Well, Thomas clearly is having sex. This woman, Jessica, who we could tell could be maybe a ex-love interest, and Thomas insists that they're friends, but his sister Olivia suspects that there's definitely more going on. I mean, the way he talks about her, the way that she's over there. She says that if Thomas doesn't want to be a priest, he doesn't have to. She feels that deep down he doesn't really want to be one. Their grandmother isn't alive anymore, and it seems that their grandmother had a huge part in him becoming to be a priest. And I think they did a really good job with us really getting into this character and really showing why he is a priest. And already, I mean, the priest in the movie was very well developed, but already this priest is going. They're definitely trying to develop this priest and make him a little bit more of a character than the one in the movie did. The one in the movie, Father Kenneth, I believe his name. I can't remember what his name was, but he was very much, a big supporting player of that movie, but he wasn't the main character. And in this, he is the main character. But basically, we kind of realized that his grandmother might have been the one to make him make this decision, and he kind of gave it a shot. But Thomas swears that he not only loves his job, but he's very good at it, and he can't see himself doing anything else. Now, I don't know if that's because he's done it all his life, and he just thinks that he's good at it, or if he truly does love what he's doing. I can't really tell, but that in general very much impressed me. I think they did a very good job with that. But then we get to our other character, Father Marcus Keene. Now, he is another part of the world. He's gone off the grid, and Rome has sent Brother Bennett to get him back on track. So Marcus and Bennett have differing opinions on how to deal with a very sick boy. Whatever Marcus is doing, it hasn't been sanctioned by the church, and Bennett wants it to stop. But Marcus is so committed to not abandoning the child, he actually pulls a gun on Bennett when he threatens to remove the boy from his home, and Marcus is cared to take him to the hospital. So we see the boy Gabriel, which, let me just say, very creepy scene. The show in general definitely has some very creepy scenes. This scene was actually very creepy and definitely had me on the edge of my seat. He's tied to his bed. He looks very rough, and Marcus is offering words of comfort and support, telling the boy to fight. But Gabriel begins muttering guttural sounds, and the bed starts shaking. It's obvious that whatever's wrong with Gabriel, it isn't just some sort of illness. There's definitely more going on there. And you kind of get the sense that Marcus isn't used to that. I'm sure he's used to treating people who are sick and, need sympathy prayers or whatever and need them to heal. But he clearly is definitely not sick. He's clearly possessed, and we definitely see that. So Thomas arrives on the scene, confused and questioning what's going on. He wakes up in his own bed in Chicago, drenched in sweat, and we don't really know what's going on there. But again, I thought they did a very good job of in these first few minutes, getting us in these two characters, showing their background overall, and showing really where they're headed. We can tell that Marcus definitely there's a reason why he's gone off the grid. We don't really know what exactly is going on with him, but these are clearly two priests who are very conflicted with what they're doing, and we very much see the way the public has personified them. And I thought that was very well done. Definitely really love that. But then we actually jump into our story with the next scene. Now, yes, the other plot in the show definitely does resemble The Exorcist a lot, but it is very different than the movie. We see one of the families in Thomas Parish in the Rances is Angela, who she has her hands full, and her husband Henry isn't well. She's got two daughters, Casey and Kat. Kat has taken to sitting alone in her room in the dark. She's got some serious resentment towards her mom, we see, but she and Casey appear to be close as Casey tries to pull her sister out of whatever funk she's in. We can tell that definitely there's something going on there, and basically, I thought, again, they did a pretty good job of developing those characters and showing their story overall. But Angela goes to see Thomas to discuss Kat. She's come home from college following a car accident that claimed the life of one of her friends. And ever since she's been home, she's been very different. And not just reclusive or in a depression, because, Thomas talks about how, I can handle depression. I've done with that before. But Angela, apparently, we see, has some familiarity with that particular mental illness, which that is definitely very interesting. I'm definitely interested in delving deeper into her character, because there's definitely stuff going on with her psychologically that we don't know yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that. So she goes on to tell him that there are strange things going on in the house, furniture moving by itself, books flying off bookshelves, voices in the wall. Things are just really out of the ordinary, things that definitely haven't happened before. And Thomas, trying to come up with some logical explanations to alleviate Angela's concerns, but she's convinced that there's definitely something in her house. She knows it sounds nuts, but she thinks that Angela insists that she's not crazy. She thinks that definitely it is in fact a demonic possession, and Thomas barely gets the words out that he doesn't think Angela's crazy when she announces she believes that it's a demon. And I thought it was interesting that we saw that. She doesn't really know. She thinks it's a demon. She thinks that definitely that's what's going on. Now, Thomas is trying to tell Angela that the demons aren't real. They're an invention of the church to explain things like addiction and mental illness, and that they're merely just metaphors. But, we can tell that definitely they're not just metaphors. And I think Thomas, I don't know if he actually believes this or if he's telling himself that because maybe he's experienced this before, but I kind of got that sense here that obviously, we can tell that he's kind of shaky about it, so I don't know if he's seen things before, but I think this definitely does imply that he's dealt with exorcisms before, and that maybe he wasn't directly involved in one, but he's heard of them before, or there was some sort of past experience, but definitely something has gone on there, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. So Angela, we see, isn't some religious fanatic, but she's pretty grounded in reality, and the fact that she's even voicing her suspicions does embarrass her. But she feels like something just isn't right, and she doesn't really know what it is, and Angela asks him to come to the house to speak to Kat and see for himself, and no sooner does he agree to do that, we then get this, I think, really unnecessary scene where this black crow flies through the window, head first through Thomas's office window, literally just commits suicide through the window. This, to me, is the only time the show does it. I don't really know why they did, but this is the perfect example of a cheap jump scare. A bird hanging the window is about as cliche as it gets. I don't know why they did this scene. It didn't do anything. It didn't really startle me or anything. I don't really know what that's really trying to say. It didn't really seem like it was trying to say anything. It just seemed like it was trying to make the show a little bit more thrilling, and it doesn't need to do that. The show already is doing, I think, a good job with giving us decent thrills and decent scares. We didn't really need this bird to add to said scares. I just think it kind of came out of nowhere. I don't really know why they did that, and I really wasn't a fan of that. Other than that, though, that's really the only instance of actual jump scares in the show. The other jump scares are pretty practical stuff. It's possession stuff and things like that, and I think they did a pretty good job with that in the show. Is it scary as Outcast? No, but for a first episode and for a Fox show, I think definitely it was pretty scary. So we see on his way to visit Kat, Thomas is still haunted by the dream he had of Father Marcus and Gabriel, because obviously what we saw was in fact a dream. We didn't really, we know, well, not everything with Marcus was a dream, obviously, but, a lot of what he saw was in fact a dream, so I think he knows that obviously there is demonic possession going on. I think he's realizing that that dream he's having is in fact coming true. So Kat assures Thomas that she's fine. Everyone thinks that she's this fragile creature, but she's dealing. I mean, even Thomas shares Angela's theory with Kat, who bursts into laughter, and something about her just feels a bit off. She feels very disconnected. She feels like she doesn't want to talk to anyone. She's very much resenting her mother. She's saying she doesn't understand her. And I think they did a really good job with setting up her character here. Kat tells Thomas that Angela's fears stem from the fact that Kat's liked her friend Wiccan's craft store on Facebook, and now Angela thinks she's drinking ram's blood or something. So they did do a good job with us, seeing that maybe Kat isn't possessed and maybe her mother is just overreacting. But Kat is convinced that her mother is the one losing her shit because a year ago we see Angela and Henry were out taking ballroom dancing lessons, and now Angela has to wipe her husband's ass for him because he's bedridden. We don't know why exactly, but her entire world blew up and she's looking for someone to blame, namely God, and that's kind of why she feels that this is going on, which is understandable, honestly. I can understand why Kat would think that. Now, that's obviously not what's going on, but Thomas asks if Kat blames God for her predicament. She states that she only blames herself because that's what you do when you're an adult, that you would blame yourself for it, and she's not just going to blame God, and she feels that her mother is not really an adult, and I think we can tell that Angela is definitely damaged. We can also tell that definitely something is off about Kat, and we don't know what it is right now, but definitely I think the episode did a good job of making us think that there definitely was something off there. So Thomas himself, I think, was definitely a little bit creeped out by that, but he decides to stay for dinner because he needs to, focus a little more on what's going on, and basically the rest of the episode focuses on him really trying to figure out if there really is something wrong within this family. So he then tries to make small talk with Henry, who at this point, it's still very unclear what happened to him. We can tell his memory is shot, and I'm assuming it was like a car accident that really damaged his brain, because it's definitely not Alzheimer's or dementia, because it's definitely bad. Like, he seems like he doesn't really remember much of what happened, and we don't really know what's going on there, but I'm sure we will find out. But Kat then tells Thomas not to bother trying to engage her dad, since he's basically a potato and won't say anything. Angela scolds her, but Kat is unapologetic and incredibly angry, yelling at Henry, snapping her fingers in his face. I mean, Henry may have limitations, but his daughter's hostility drives him from the table, we definitely see. So we definitely know that something is off about her. And Thomas then shares a story of a woman in a coma who miraculously woke up, and when she did, she could remember a conversation took place inside her room. While she was unconscious, which suggests to him anyway that even when the rest of the body shuts down, there's some part of the mind that stays aware. So something is definitely there. So he warns Kat to keep her hands to herself, and that obviously he can see kind of what's going on. So I think it was interesting, even when you're in a vegetative state, you're still kind of there. Your mind isn't really there, but definitely there's a part of you that's there. So I thought it was interesting we saw that. And I'm kind of wondering if that woman might have been his grandmother. We know something happened to his grandmother, so who's to say that maybe his grandmother wasn't in a vegetative state? I don't know. I kind of got that impression here. So there's even more to Henry than meets the eye, because Thomas goes to say goodbye. Henry is lucid. He knows why the priest was there, knows his wife was worried, and as Thomas is leaving, Henry tells him he can find Father Marcus at St. Aquina's, and Thomas asks who Father Marcus is, but the moment has passed, so we don't really know what's going on. And I like that we found out that Thomas and Father Marcus do not know each other. The episode kind of suggests that they do. We can see here that they don't. So at home, Tom does some research at St. Aquina's, which is a private theological institute in Bedford, Illinois. He then does some digging on Father Marcus and exorcisms and an article about the incidents in Georgetown from the original film, which that I thought was interesting. This is, in fact, a sequel to the film. The instances in Georgetown have happened. Now, obviously, they're not just going to have random cameos in here, but I thought they did a pretty good job with showing this kind of thing has happened before. It's not like, Ghostbusters where this hasn't happened, or like MacGyver where there hasn't been a MacGyver. No, there was, in fact, a Regan. There were characters like that. For the movie, the characters from the movie do, in fact, coexist within this world, and I really do like that. I think it honestly adds a little bit more stakes when you do something like that. So it also includes a pic of the infamous stairwell, and Marcus finds himself back in the room with Marcus and Gabriel. No progress is being made saving the boy's soul, and Marcus asks the beast the hour of his departure. Gabriel replies, "Not long now," and Gabriel then breaks free of his restraints. He knocks Marcus to the floor. The boy's head begins to swivel, and you hear bone snapping. One last crack, Gabriel's down, but because unlike in the movie, a human body actually can't survive its head being treated like a Pez dispenser, which is interesting that we saw. The stakes are definitely a little bit much more higher in this show, and it also makes sense obviously because Fox can't really show that kind of stuff, so I can understand why they can't show that, but either way I thought that made sense here. So Thomas then makes a field trip to St. Aquinas. He encounters a man who knows an awful lot about him. He's heard that Thomas is a rising star and that the bishop speaks very highly of Thomas, and he wants to know what brings Thomas to St. Aquinas. So Thomas says he's looking for answers. They engage in a brief discussion about finding one's purpose, but Thomas spots Father Marcus, who he recognizes from his dreams. So I like that we saw that he has, in fact, had dreams about Father Marcus, and he takes off after him, and Thomas tells Marcus he heard that he was an exorcist and wants to know what information Marcus can give him about demonic possession. So Thomas wants to know if exorcism works, and Marcus says yes, according to the church. So Marcus is in fact the exorcist, and Thomas is not. Thomas is kind of the inexperienced one, kind of being thrown into this situation. So Marcus figures out that Thomas didn't come for advice, he actually wants help, because he feels that he can exorcise the demon, and he can't just do it on his own. So Thomas says possibly a girl in his parish, but the driving force behind his visit are the dreams he had about Marcus and Gabriel, and Marcus describes everything he saw in great detail, things that there was no other way he could possibly know. So Marcus confirms that what Thomas witnessed was in fact real, and it happened 18 months ago in Mexico City. Marcus thinks that now Thomas believes God has brought them together, but it's merely a coincidence, and basically Thomas is being manipulated by forces he can't begin to understand, we can definitely see, which is very interesting. Definitely someone is trying to get into his head and we don't know who it is, but Thomas wants to know who they are, and Marcus replies that's an excellent question. He advised Thomas to go home because he's way out of his depth, and Thomas accused Marcus of being afraid, and Marcus responds that Thomas should be as well, obviously because this demon, definitely has a mind of its own, and Thomas quotes scripture saying, "Come to me, all you are who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He leaves, and Marcus breaks down a bit. He speaks to a cross on his wall. Apparently he's been waiting for a sign, and Thomas seems to be said sign, which is interesting. We get the sense that he's been living off the grid for a while, and again, we don't really know why, but that's something I'm definitely interested in getting into, is what is the real reason why Marcus has been living off the grid. Obviously, he's been waiting for some kind of sign. Thomas seems to be it, but what exactly caused him to live off the grid? We already saw that the church does not really respect him. He doesn't have the greatest reputation, and I'm sure we're going to find out more what that is, but I thought it was a very good way of setting up the character, and I like that we do have some interactions from these two, because I thought that these two work together, but apparently they don't, and I actually like seeing that, because it's going to get us to take two characters who are in very similar circumstances, but under two very different types of people, and seeing work together, and I think it's something the show already is doing very well. So Thomas then arrives at the Rance home. He has a conversation with Angela, and he wants to know if Angela believes in God. She's poor, but she does like to think that good things happen for a reason, and that they aren't just a bunch of molecules smashing into each other. So Angela then asks Thomas if he believes, which would seem to be a strange question to ask a priest. Other priests, will say they hear God's voices, calling them a swerve, but unfortunately, he says he never actually had that. He was born in Chicago. When his parents separated, he moved to Mexico to live with his grandmother. She had big plans for him, convinced him that he'd be the first Mexican pope, but Thomas actually never heard God's voice. Maybe he never wanted him to in the first place, and again, he's become this priest, but for some reason, he doesn't seem to believe in God, which that alone is a very interesting character flaw, and I can't wait to see what they do with that. So he then confides in Angela that he thinks that God has finally spoken to him, and his purpose is to help Angela and her family, and that's really why he's there. And that, destiny was the reason that he's been here, that, the reason he had that dream was foreshadowing that this is what his purpose should be. So our conversation is interrupted by a thump and a scream. Marcus heads upstairs. As he approaches Kat's room, the attic starts unexpectedly pop down from the ceiling. He then ascends and thinks he sees Kat, and he asks what she's doing there, moves towards her but trips, and when he looks up, she appears to be gone. So he sees some movement in what appears to be a rat, but the rodent's body is twisting and moving in a very unnatural way. Its spine snaps, a hand reached out to grab. Very creepy stuff, let me just say. Very eerie, chilling stuff here. The big twist, though, which I thought was really clever, is that it's actually not Kat in the attic. It's, in fact, Casey. Casey is, in fact, the one possessed. She comes in like something out of a Japanese horror film, all loose-limbed and inhuman. She overtakes him, begins to strangle him, and suddenly the attic light comes on. Angela appears. Casey looks fine. Angela questions why she's there. Casey states that Thomas killed a rat by whacking with a book. She suggests they get some traps because where there's one, there's usually a bunch. And he's still obviously very shaken by what he witnessed. He remains quiet, obviously because Angela's already damaged and has enough going on in her life. But looks up, he sees Casey watching him from a window, and that is when we start to hear the famous score, the score from The Exorcist, which I love seeing that the show did. And Also, we see, he's leaving the house, and also preparing for the battle is Marcus, who packs his bag and heads for Chicago, and that is the way the episode ends overall. But let's get into the show overall. And really get into what I really like and what I don't like about the show. So, like I said, really great premiere. I was expecting this premiere to be really mediocre or just very been there, done that, but it wasn't that. I actually really like the way his show was done, in that it mainly is a character piece. And I think that's something that The Exorcist, the movie, did really well, is that was a very character-focused movie. Even though we did have Regan, I think all of the characters were very much developed and very much got into those three characters. And it seems like we're doing the same with the show, and I really do love that. But with that said, let's get into our acting and performance overall and really talk about the characters in this show. Which by far, one of the high points of the show is the cast in the show. One of the most stellar casts I think I've seen of any show so far this fall, and especially from Alfonso Herrera, who I already know is a great actor because of Sense8. I love the character of Leto. I think he was fantastic on that show. I love everyone on that show, but Leto definitely was one of my favorites. And the character of Thomas Ortega, I already really do love. I mean, this is a character who clearly is very much questioning whether he actually wants to be a priest, because he hasn't really ever believed in God. He clearly was kind of coerced into doing this by his grandmother, and he didn't really want to do this on his own merits. And I really do like seeing him. I'm interested in really developing his character, figuring out, what's really going on with him. Was his destiny to really help this family, or does he just think that? Also, what is the whole idea with the possessions? Someone is clearly messing with him. I don't know if it's the possessions or if he himself is messing with him, but I think overall they really got into his character very well. Was relation with how he isn't anything like other priests you've seen. Overall, very interesting character, very strong performance. I think he did an incredible job in this role, and his character alone was enough for me to really love the show. I think they really developed his character very well, but fortunately, all the other characters I think are just as well developed as he was in this first episode. Ben Daniels especially, again, another great actor who I really did love in Flesh and Bone. His character of Marcus here, I'm already very intrigued in, because, again, we don't know the real reason why he's so ridiculed and not liked by the church. There obviously is some reason that's going on. I'm assuming that it's because he feels that exorcisms are real and that there are, in fact, demons out there, and that the church most likely, completely is against that. They don't feel that that's actually happening, but he knows what actually is happening, and I like seeing that he's, this very experienced priest, and Thomas is too, but he definitely is more experienced, and their relationship overall, I think, is one of the most important things in the show. I can't wait to get more into their backgrounds, how they're going to help out each other, really what's going on with them, and I think they're definitely, both of them are very interesting performances, but I also really love Geena Davis in the show as the character of Angela. I really thought she was going to be that stereotypical mom who's just kind of overbearing and annoying, but no, she's actually suffered a great loss, and we can definitely tell that she is very damaged. A lot of it she is definitely holding in, but she herself is very much lost. She can't, her husband definitely has something going on with his brain. We don't really know what it is, but something definitely is going on there. And then as far as, her daughter, she thinks that her daughter right now is possessed. And of course, her other daughter's possessed, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on with her character, the whole instance of depression, all that just really interested me. And I think Geena Davis in general, really looking forward to her character. I really like what she did here, and I think overall she did a very good job. And then the only other two characters to really talk about are the two daughters, Kat and Casey. I thought they both were very good on the show. Brianne Howey especially did a very good job in this performance as Kat, because now that we know she's not possessed, a lot of her character definitely makes sense. I mean, she's clearly someone who feels she's more mature than her mother, and also feels that her mother's a little bit crazy. And her mother's obviously not crazy, but she definitely is damaged, and I like how her daughter really does look at that. And knowing that Casey's possessed, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where we go with that character. When is Angela going to realize that something's off about Casey, and how is Thomas going to break that news to her? That's something that I can't wait to see, and I think overall, like I said, these characters are very well developed. I really liked how in-depth we got them just in this first episode, and I hope that we stay just in depth as we did, as the show goes on. So, the cast is great, but the directing in the show is definitely something I definitely do want to talk about, because, especially for a show that, like I said, had a pre-existing story and is based on a popular movie, they did a pretty good job with, I think, adapting the show to TV, because the tone of the show is very much like the tone of the movie. It's very tense, it's very chilling, you really don't know what's going to happen, and I have to say, it really wasn't cheesy. I thought it was going to be a little bit cheesy, but it really wasn't. I mean, I was able to take this seriously. I was able to really go with it, and I think they did a really good job with that. I really did love the tone overall. I mean, this is both a great character drama, but also a very scary horror show, and I think they did a very good job with telling that story, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of that. But I also really love the writing of the show. That is the thing that by far impressed me the most, because especially a show that's on a Friday, and again, is a show, it's based off a movie. The difference with this is that it takes place after the movie. The movie did in fact happen. We're not going to meet those characters, but stuff like this has happened before. So knowing that definitely adds a lot more to the story. Knowing that it's still going on, knowing that they haven't been able to get rid of it. I mean, there could be a lot of callbacks to the movie, but they're not really doing that. They're doing what they can to make this stand out on its own, and I definitely feel that it does. I mean, this story in general, I think, is a little bit different because, yes, we did have someone die in the movie, but it was a little bit different in the sense that, Thomas and Marcus, they knew each other very well. They worked together, and, Thomas is gonna be that the father, the priest that ends up spoiler alert, committing suicide at the end of The Exorcist, and I think Marcus is gonna be that other priest, and we'll have to see really what's gonna happen there. But that's kind of what I got. Angela in general, I mean, she's not at all like the character in the movie. I can't think of her name right now, but the one that Ellen, what the hell's her name? She's in Flowers in the Eye. I can't think of her name right now. Ellen Bernstein, the one that she played in the movie, she's not all like her character. That character was like an actress and kind of very much like, not a stage mom, but she was just very much like an actress and not much time for her child. This character is much different, and I think they did a very good job with that, and I really did love the story overall, and I like the way that we really focused on the characters in this first episode. Yes, it was scary, but it really was focused on the characters. With that said, the cinematography in the show is outstanding. I mean, it's pretty much up there with the movie. I think the cinematography here looks really great. The show in general has this really creepy, eerie vibe to it, and that's perfect for a show like this. But again, it feels very grounded and very realistic, like this could actually happen. And if this were to happen, this is how the situation would happen. And they played that out very, very well, and it was good that they took some time with that. But the show did scare me. I got a few genuine scares from it. I was surprised, but I did get a few genuine scares. I did feel a little bit choked up at times, and I think the show did a really good job in actually genuinely scaring us. I mean, the good scares are the ones like the possession ones. I don't want to see any more birds flying through the window. I thought that was very unnecessary. I don't know why the show did that, and I think it was a little bit silly in the way that they did that. If I had to have one other complaint with this episode, is that I think they didn't do the best job in showing us what was Thomas's dream and what actually happened with Marcus and Brother Bennett, because did Marcus actually shoot Brother Bennett, or was that just in Thomas's dream? I couldn't really tell. Maybe I'm stupid, but I couldn't really tell what was going on there. But other than that, I'm also glad to see, of course, they have the score in there, because everyone loves the Exorcist score. The da 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 da, the score that everyone loves. I thought they did a very good job with having that in this first episode. But again, later you can stand on its own. The intro, I think, is very short to the point. Definitely really do love it. And overall, this ended up being one of the most promising shows of the year, honestly. This is exactly what you need to do when you adapt a movie, you adapt a popular movie into a TV show. This is what I see more of. Less of Lethal Weapon and Rush Hour, and more of The Exorcist, definitely. But overall, guys, I really did love this first episode. Let me know what you guys thought of this first episode overall. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Does this show scare you? Do you think it holds up with the movie? Am I saying this is as good as the movie right now? I mean, again, I don't know. It's the first episode, so I can't really say if it's as good. It seems like it's doing a good job of not making us compare it, because, again, the movie already happened, so this is kind of just like a continuation. But, again, it's not. It's just kind of following other characters, and I think they did a good job with that. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for a movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.